They laughed when the janitor's daughter picked up the violin until she played the impossible. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Antonio Ramirez had been the head janitor at Preston Academy for 15 years. Every day, he arrived before dawn to ensure the prestigious private school was spotless for the wealthy students who walked its halls. His calloused hands had polished every trophy in the display cases, fixed countless broken desks, and mopped miles of hallway floor tile. Though the faculty barely acknowledged his existence, Antonio took pride in his work and found joy in the small moments, like when his 16-year-old daughter Sophia would sometimes join him after her public school. Let out, Sophia was Antonio's pride and joy. Quiet and observant, she inherited her father's work ethic and her mother's artistic spirit. While Antonio cleaned the music hall after hours, Sophia would sit in the corner, headphones on, homework spread across her lap, occasionally glancing at the grand piano or the rack of string instruments with unconcealed longing. "Why don't you ever try playing one?" Antonio once asked her. Sophia shook her head. "Those aren't for people like us, Papa." The prestigious Preston Academy Spring Showcase was approaching, the highlight of the school's calendar. Parents, alumni, and potential donors would fill the auditorium to watch Preston's most talented students perform. Ms. Harrington, the severe music director, drilled her students relentlessly, her voice echoing through the halls long after regular classes ended. Antonio often overheard the teachers talking about their star pupil, Olivia Whitney, daughter of a state senator, who would be performing a violin solo as the showcase finale. "Her technique is flawless," they would say. "A true prodigy." One evening, Sophia was helping her father clean the music room when Ms. Harrington marched in with Principal Edwards and several other teachers for an emergency meeting. "Olivia broke her wrist skiing in Aspen," Ms. Harrington announced, her voice tight with panic. "The showcase is in 2 weeks, and our finale is ruined." Antonio and Sophia tried to make themselves invisible, moving quietly around the edges of the room with their cleaning supplies. "What about Patricia Chen?" suggested Mr. Dawson, the history teacher. "In Paris with her family," replied Ms. Harrington. "Besides, no one could learn Olivia's piece in 2 weeks. It's Paganini's Caprice No. 24, one of the most difficult violin pieces ever written." Sophia accidentally knocked over a trash can, drawing the teacher's attention. "Still here, Ramirez?" Ms. Harrington said with a dismissive glance. Her eyes narrowed when she noticed Sophia. "And who's this?" "My daughter, ma'am," Antonio said quietly. "She helps me sometimes after her school." Principal Edwards checked his watch impatiently. "Let's continue this discussion tomorrow. We need a solution fast." As the teachers gathered their things to leave, Ms. Harrington noticed Sophia staring at the violin case on the table. "Do you play?" she asked, her tone somewhere between condescending and amused. Sophia shook her head but couldn't take her eyes off the instrument. "Do you want to try?" Ms. Harrington pushed, a small smirk forming. The other teachers paused, watching the interaction with mild curiosity. I don't know how," Sophia stammered. Mr. Dawson chuckled. "Well, we're desperate for a violinist. Maybe the janitor's daughter will save our showcase." The teachers laughed, and Principal Edwards rolled his eyes. "Let's go. We have real solutions to consider." As they left, Ms. Harrington called over her shoulder. "Feel free to practice, sweetheart. The violin case is unlocked." Their laughter echoed down the hallway. Antonio found Sophia frozen in place, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "Don't listen to them, mija," he said gently. "Those people, they don't see beyond their own world." Sophia nodded but remained quiet for the rest of the evening. On their bus ride home to their small apartment in the east side of the city, she stared out the window, lost in thought. What the teachers at Preston Academy didn't know, what nobody knew except Antonio, was that Sophia had been teaching herself to play the violin for years. It had started when she was 12. Antonio had found a damaged violin in the school's dumpster after a particularly rowdy group of boys had accidentally broken it during music class. He'd taken it home, researched how to repair it on YouTube, and presented the fixed instrument to Sophia for her birthday. Without money for lessons, Sophia had taught herself using free online tutorials, practicing for hours in their apartment, when Antonio worked his second job as a night security guard. She would muffle the strings with a handkerchief to avoid disturbing their neighbors. For 4 years, she had dedicated herself to mastering the instrument, driven by pure love for the music. And Paganini's Caprice, No. 24? She had been working on it for months. It was her mountain to climb, her impossible challenge. "Papa," Sophia said suddenly that evening as they ate a simple dinner, "I want to play in the showcase." Antonio nearly choked on his food. "What? After how they treated you?" Sophia's eyes shone with determination. "Not for them, for me, for us." The next day, Sophia returned to Preston Academy with her father. While Antonio went about his usual cleaning duties, Sophia slipped into an unused practice room with her violin case. Over the next 2 weeks, she spent every evening practicing at the school, refining her interpretation of Paganini's notoriously difficult piece. Antonio would listen outside the door, amazed at his daughter's talent and determination. One night, Ms. Harrington nearly discovered Sophia practicing, but Antonio distracted the music teacher with questions about a special cleaning solution for the grand piano. As the showcase approached, the school buzzed with activity. Programs were printed with Special Violin Performance, TBA, listed as the finale, as the teachers still hadn't found a replacement for Olivia. Several students had auditioned, but none could handle the challenging piece. The day before the showcase, Sophia approached her father with a request. "I need you to talk to Principal Edwards," she said. "Ask him if I can perform tomorrow night." Antonio was hesitant. "Sophia, these people, they might humiliate you." "Let them try," Sophia said with quiet confidence. The auditorium was packed, with Preston Academy's elite community, parents in designer clothes, alumni who had gone on to prestigious universities, potential donors with checkbooks at the ready. The showcase had proceeded flawlessly. A Mozart piano sonata, a string quartet playing Vivaldi, a haunting flute solo. Principal Edwards appeared on stage for the finale announcement, looking uncomfortable. "Ladies and gentlemen, as some of you know, our planned finale cannot be performed by Olivia Whitney due to an injury. However, we have an alternate performer." He cleared his throat and continued with visible reluctance. "Sophia Ramirez will now perform Paganini's Caprice No. 24. A murmur ran through the audience. Ms. Harrington's eyes widened in horror as Sophia walked onto the stage in a simple black dress borrowed from her cousin's quinceañera. Antonio watched from the side entrance, his heart pounding. Several teachers exchanged amused glances, expecting disaster. Mr. Dawson whispered to another teacher, "This should be interesting." Sophia stood center stage, raised her violin to her shoulder, and took a deep breath. The moment her bow touched the strings, the atmosphere in the auditorium transformed. The opening notes, precise, confident, and filled with emotion, silenced every whisper. Ms. Harrington's smirk dissolved into shock. Principal Edwards' jaw dropped. The audience leaned forward collectively, captivated by the technically flawless and emotionally charged performance unfolding before them. Sophia's fingers flew across the fingerboard with breathtaking speed and accuracy. The challenging double stops, the lightning-fast arpeggios, the complex harmonics, she executed each with the precision of a seasoned concert violinist and the soul of someone who played not for acclaim, but for love. By the time she reached the final variation, tears were streaming down Antonio's face. Miss Harrington sat rigid in her seat, her face a mixture of disbelief and grudging admiration. Several renowned musicians in the audience exchanged glances of astonishment. When the final note resonated through the hall, there was a moment of stunned silence, and then the audience erupted. The standing ovation was immediate and thunderous. Parents, students, teachers, and donors rose to their feet in unanimous recognition of extraordinary talent. The thunderous applause continued long after Sophia's final bow. She stood center stage, violin clutched tightly in her trembling hands as waves of admiration washed over her from an audience that, moments ago, had expected nothing but embarrassment. The standing ovation lasted nearly 3 minutes, an eternity in performance time. With several audience members wiping tears from their eyes, Sophia remained frozen, overwhelmed by the response, until she spotted her father at the side entrance. Antonio's proud smile and subtle nod gave her the courage to take one final bow before exiting the stage on unsteady legs. In the wings, Sophia collapsed into her father's arms, her composure finally breaking. "Papa, did that really happen?" she whispered against his shoulder, her voice muffled and thick with emotion. Antonio held his daughter tightly, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. After 15 years of invisibility in these halls, of "excuse me" and downcast eyes, and being treated as part of the furniture, they were suddenly, undeniably seen. The stage manager, who had never before acknowledged Antonio's existence, approached them with reverence. "Ms. Ramirez, they're asking for an encore," she said, gesturing toward the still applauding audience. Sophia looked at her father in disbelief. "Principal." Edwards appeared beside them, his usual air of authority temporarily displaced by genuine astonishment. "Please, Sophia, one more piece?" he asked, using her first name for the first time. The desperation in his voice was unmistakable. The showcase's success now hinged entirely on the janitor's daughter he had dismissed so casually just weeks before. Sophia straightened her shoulders and nodded. Returning to the stage, she performed Bach's Chaconne from Partita No. 2, another, monumentally difficult piece, but one with a soulful, almost spiritual quality that contrasted with Paganini's technical fireworks. The audience fell under her spell once more, captivated by the depth of emotion she brought to every phrase. When Sophia finally exited the stage for the last time, the reception area was already buzzing with anticipation. Typically, these post-showcase gatherings were predictable affairs, parents congratulating their own children, faculty members networking with potential donors, students clustering in their usual social groups. Tonight was different. A crowd had formed near the entrance to the backstage area, waiting for Sophia's appearance. Antonio felt a momentary panic, his protective instincts flaring. What if they were waiting to mock her? What if this was the prelude to some cruel joke? He had spent too many years in service to these people not to be wary of their sudden interest. But when Sophia emerged, still clutching her violin case like a talisman, the reception was nothing short of reverential. Mrs. Whitney, state senator's wife and mother of the injured Olivia, was the first to approach. "My dear," she said, taking Sophia's free hand between both of hers, "that was the most moving interpretation of Paganini I have ever heard, and I've attended performances at Carnegie Hall." Sophia mumbled a thank you, unprepared for praise from such a source. Mrs. Whitney continued, lowering her voice slightly, "Olivia has been playing since she was 3, with the finest teachers money can buy. She's talented, certainly, but what you have, that cannot be taught." Before Sophia could respond, she was surrounded by other parents and audience members, each eager to share their amazement and ask questions about her training. Where had she studied? Who was her teacher? How long had she been playing? With each honest answer, "At home, YouTube and library books, 4 years." The crowd's astonishment grew. A distinguished-looking man in his 60s pressed a business card into her hand. I'm Daniel Kerensky, Director of Strings at the State Conservatory, he said. We need to talk about your future. Sophia stared at the card in disbelief, her fingers tracing the embossed lettering as if to verify its reality. Across the room, Ms. Harrington stood rigid, champagne flute clutched too tightly in her manicured hand. Her colleagues were watching, gauging her reaction to this unexpected turn of events. The music director, who had prided herself on recognizing and nurturing talent, had completely overlooked an extraordinary violinist who had been literally cleaning her classroom floor. The professional embarrassment was acute. She set down her glass with deliberate care and made her way through the crowd toward Sophia and Antonio. The crowd parted slightly as Ms. Harrington approached, conversations hushing in anticipation of the confrontation. Sophia tensed, instinctively moving closer to her father. Antonio placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder, ready to intervene if necessary. But Ms. Harrington's face, though tight with emotion, displayed none of her usual condescension. "Where did you learn to play like that?" she asked, genuine curiosity replacing her usual haughtiness. The question contained no barb, no hidden accusation, just professional bewilderment. "At home," Sophia replied simply, gaining confidence as she spoke. "My papa fixed a violin someone threw away. The rest was just practice, lots of practice, Ms." Harrington's gaze shifted to Antonio, reassessing the man who had emptied her trash and mopped her floors for years, without ever exchanging more than perfunctory greetings. "You repaired a violin?" she asked, unable to mask her surprise. Antonio nodded, his dignity evident in his straight posture and direct gaze. "It needed a new bridge and sound post. The strings were shot, of course, but the body was solid maple. It had good bones." He spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who understood craftsmanship, whose hands could coax beauty from the discarded and overlooked. Ms. Harrington found herself nodding with unexpected respect. Principal Edwards, overhearing. The conversation approached with an entourage of board members and major donors. The school administrator, who had barely acknowledged Antonio's existence for 15 years, now extended his hand in greeting. "Mr. Ramirez," he said, the formality a stark contrast to his previous dismissive Ramirez when addressing the janitor. "Your daughter's performance was the highlight of our showcase. Truly remarkable." Antonio shook the offered hand firmly, his expression carefully neutral. A lifetime of maintaining dignity in the face of dismissal had prepared him for this moment of vindication. "Thank you, Principal Edwards. Sophia has always been exceptional. You just never bothered to see it." The blunt truth hung in the air, uncomfortable but undeniable. Principal Edwards had the grace to look ashamed, his usual confidence momentarily abandoned. One of the board members, Sandra Clemente, a successful corporate attorney known for her direct approach, broke the awkward silence. "Well, we see it now, and we need to make this right." She turned to Sophia with genuine interest. "Tell me about your educational plans, Sophia. Where are you hoping to attend college?" Sophia's response, that college seemed financially out of reach despite her excellent grades, created another ripple of discomfort among the assembled Preston Academy power players. Ms. Clemente exchanged glances with several other board members and nodded decisively. "I think we can help with that," she said. "Preston Academy prides itself on nurturing exceptional talent. We've clearly missed an opportunity here, but it's not too late to correct that oversight." The conversation that followed would change the trajectory of Sophia's life. By evening's end, preliminary plans had been drafted for the Ramirez Music Initiative, a new program designed to provide instruments and instruction to talented students regardless of financial background. Sophia would be its first beneficiary, with a private fund established to support her continued musical education. More significantly, the initiative would identify and support other students from underserved communities, bringing them into Preston Academy's orbit through merit-based scholarships and specialized instruction. As the reception wound down, Timothy Henderson, the school's most generous benefactor and a known collector of rare instruments, approached Sophia with an unusual request. "May I see your violin?" he asked gently. Sophia hesitated, suddenly self-conscious about her patched-together instrument in this room of wealth and privilege. With a reassuring nod from her father, she carefully removed the violin from its case, a case Antonio had rescued from a second-hand store, and relined himself. Mr. Henderson examined the instrument with expert eyes, turning it gently to assess its condition and provenance. "Remarkable," he murmured, but Sophia wasn't sure if he meant the violin itself or the music she had coaxed from it. "This has served you well, but for where you're going next." He handed the violin back with reverence. "I have a Guarneri del Gesù in my collection. Not quite concert-ready, it needs some restoration work, but it would be the perfect instrument for someone with your talent and sensitivity. I'd like you to have it." Sophia gasped, knowing enough about violins to understand the magnitude of such an offer. A Guarneri was a museum-quality instrument, worth millions, the kind of violin legendary performers spent lifetimes hoping to play. "I couldn't possibly," she began, but Mr. Henderson raised a hand to stop her protest. "Music is meant to be played, not locked away," he said simply. "That violin has been silent for too long. It deserves your hands, your understanding." He glanced at Antonio. "And perhaps your father could assist with some of the restoration work. I understand he has a gift for bringing instruments back to life." 3 months later, Sophia Ramirez performed her debut recital at the National Conservatory of Music on a restored 1742 Guarneri del Gesù, her father having worked alongside master luthiers to prepare the instrument for its return to the stage. The concert hall was filled to capacity, with a special section reserved for Preston Academy faculty, students, and alumni. Ms. Harrington sat in the front row, her program annotated with technical observations and notes for her own students. Principal Edwards attended with his wife, genuinely moved by the music, and perhaps also by the living reminder of how easily talent can be overlooked when it doesn't arrive in expected packages. Antonio Ramirez continued working at Preston Academy, but everything had changed. Teachers greeted him by name, sometimes stopping to chat about Sophia's progress or to seek his opinion on the quality of sound in the music room. Students, particularly those from less privileged backgrounds, regarded him with newfound respect, some even approaching him for advice about the new opportunities available through the Ramirez Initiative. The custodial closet where he stored his supplies now featured a framed newspaper article about Sophia's conservatory debut, alongside a photograph of father and daughter with the restored Guarneri. The most profound change, however, was in the school itself. The Ramirez Music Initiative quickly expanded beyond its original scope, evolving into a comprehensive program that identified and nurtured talent from communities throughout the city. Weekly, buses would arrive at Preston Academy, carrying young musicians from neighborhoods like Sophia's, eager for the specialized instruction now available to them. What began as an attempt to save face following an embarrassing oversight had transformed into something authentic and valuable. A genuine effort to recognize excellence wherever it might be found. And in the trophy case at the entrance of Preston Academy, alongside awards for academic excellence and athletic achievement, stood a new photograph, Sophia Ramirez at her conservatory debut performance, violin in hand, a living testament to the power of talent, determination, and a father's unwavering belief in his daughter's potential. Below the photograph, a small brass plaque bore a quote from Sophia herself. "Music doesn't care who plays it or where they come from. It only asks for devotion and an honest heart." These words became the unofficial motto of the Ramirez Initiative, a program that would go on to change hundreds of lives, starting with a janitor's daughter who dared to pick up a discarded violin and make it sing.